When audiences first tuned into the Discovery Channel's Alaskan Bush People in 2014, they were introduced to a family that seemed entirely plucked from another century. The Brown family captivated millions with their rugged, off-grid lifestyle, their unique dialect, and their fierce dedication to one another, affectionately referring to themselves as the Wolf Pack. For a while, the show painted a picture of an unbreakable clan that could withstand anything the harsh Alaskan wilderness threw at them. But as the cameras rolled year after year, the carefully curated illusion of wilderness utopia began to fracture. Behind the log cabins and campfire singing lay a far darker reality involving devastating losses, shocking legal battles, profound personal struggles, and deep family fractures that the bush could never heal. In this comprehensive exploration, we delve into the untold stories of the Alaskan Bush People cast members, examining who has tragically passed away, who has faced time behind bars, and where the remaining members of the Wolf Pack stand today as they navigate a world far more complicated than the isolation of the Alaskan bush. We begin with the man who started it all, the undeniable patriarch of the family, Billy Brown. Billy served as the heart, soul, and visionary of the reality series. His backstory was steeped in tragedy, which he often cited as the catalyst for his extreme off-grid lifestyle. When Billy was just 16 years old, his entire world was shattered when his parents and his sister were killed in a devastating plane crash. Orphaned and adrift, Billy spent his formative years wandering the country before eventually finding his way to the unforgiving waters of the North Pacific, where he worked as a commercial fisherman. It was there that he met Amy, and together they embarked on a life dedicated to escaping the modern world, raising their 7 children in the remote wilderness. Billy was portrayed as a pioneering survivalist, but his life was not without severe controversy. Long before the Discovery Channel cameras arrived, Billy faced legal trouble, including a conviction for horse theft in 1980. However, his most significant legal woes came much later. Between 2010 and 2013, Billy and several of his children were charged with a staggering 60 counts of unsworn falsification and theft. The charges stemmed from them lying about their Alaska residency to fraudulently obtain the Alaska Permanent Fund dividend, a program that pays residents an annual share of the state's oil revenues. To avoid harsher penalties, Billy pleaded guilty to a single misdemeanor count of second-degree unsworn falsification. He was sentenced to 180 days in jail, with 150 days suspended, ultimately serving 30 days behind bars in 2016. He was also ordered to pay back nearly $8,000 in improperly obtained funds and a $10,000 fine. Despite accumulating a personal net worth of around $6 million and helping the family amass a collective fortune of $60 million, Billy's final years were marred by declining health. He had suffered from seizures for years, with his son Bam Bam explaining that the episodes ranged from mild incidents Billy could hide to terrifying attacks that resulted in a complete loss of consciousness. In 2019, his health took a catastrophic turn when he collapsed while trying to exit the family camper. After a grueling 7-hour surgery, doctors removed a pound of fluid from one of his lungs, discovering that his breathing issues were actually the result of a failing heart. Medical professionals strictly warned Billy that living at a high altitude was a death sentence for his condition. True to his stubborn nature, Billy reportedly refused to leave his mountain, famously declaring that he would rather die on his land than anywhere else. On February 7, 2021, Billy Brown suffered a fatal seizure at the age of 68. His son Bear broke the heartbreaking news to the world on Instagram, calling his father their best friend and a wonderful, loving patriarch. The Discovery Channel aired a special tribute episode, but the loss of Billy fundamentally broke the foundation of the Wolf Pack, leaving a void that the family has struggled to fill ever since. Next, we turn to the eldest Brown child, Matthew "Matt" Brown, whose storyline is perhaps the most tragic and deeply troubling of the entire family. Matt was originally presented as a key component of the family's survival dynamic, but behind the scenes, he was fighting a devastating battle with substance abuse that ultimately led to his complete estrangement from the family. Matt's struggles became public knowledge in 2016 when he entered rehab for alcohol addiction following a DUI arrest in Juneau, Alaska. He admitted that he had been spiraling out of control, influenced by poor choices and a dangerous social drinking culture. After completing a 35-day program, he briefly returned to the show, but the pressures of reality television and his underlying demons proved too powerful, leading to a severe relapse. In 2018, Matt checked himself into the prestigious Betty Ford Center, publicly acknowledging his ongoing fight and expressing gratitude for the support of his family. His father, Billy, released a heartbreaking statement at the time, saying the family would rather lose Matt from their home for a little while than lose him forever. However, Matt's downward trajectory was far from over. In 2018, while Matt was in California for treatment, two separate women came forward with horrific allegations of sexual assault. Jessica Georges, a personal assistant to the family, alleged that Matt raped her in a swimming pool at a residence in Canoga Park, Los Angeles. Just 3 days later, Matt's then-manager, Shelley Dawn, alleged that Matt had raped her at the exact same location. Both women reported the incidents to the Los Angeles Police Department, and the case was transferred to the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. Ultimately, prosecutors declined to press charges due to a lack of sufficient evidence. Despite escaping formal criminal conviction, the fallout was absolute. Text messages obtained by the media allegedly showed Matt's brothers, Bear and Gabe, reacting with intense anger to the accusations, with Bear allegedly stating he would have killed Matt if he had known he was that dangerous. The allegations, combined with Matt's continuous struggles with addiction, led to his permanent dismissal from Alaskan Bush People in 2019. His siblings eventually cut off all contact. Matt later claimed that the show's production environment exacerbated his addiction and accused his late father of withholding his earnings, leaving him financially desperate. Today, Matt lives a quiet, isolated life in Loomis, Washington, a tiny town of just over 100 residents. He resides in a wooden cabin off the grid, works on a local farm tending to orchards, and has remarkably rebuilt a substantial online presence. With hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram and YouTube, he now uses his platform to document his sobriety journey, wilderness living, and personal growth, having reconciled with his father shortly before Billy's passing. The emotional anchor of the Brown family was, without a doubt, Amy Brown. Affectionately known as Mother Amy, she was the stabilizing force who held the chaotic household together while raising 7 children in unforgiving environments. While Amy does not have a criminal record, her story features a harrowing battle with mortality that shifted the entire trajectory of the family's life. In the spring of 2017, while the show was still filming in Alaska, Amy began experiencing severe back pain that she initially dismissed as severe arthritis. The reality, however, was far more terrifying. Medical scans revealed that Amy was suffering from stage 3 non-small cell lung cancer that had aggressively spread throughout her chest and back. Doctors delivered a devastating prognosis, giving her only a 3% chance of survival. The diagnosis forced the family to make a heartbreaking departure from their beloved Alaskan bush, relocating to a 435-acre ranch in Washington's North Cascade Mountains to be closer to advanced medical facilities at UCLA Medical Center. Amy's treatment was agonizing. She underwent a brutal 4-month regimen of chemotherapy combined with radiation. The radiation burned her throat and made eating nearly impossible, causing her weight to plummet to a terrifying 7 to 7 pounds. Billy later revealed that she was just a few pounds away from death, crying out in pain multiple times a day. Miraculously, against all odds, Amy responded to the treatment. When doctors finally announced that she was cancer-free, Billy stated that the family literally had to be picked up off the floor in shock. However, the victory came with a heavy price. The primary source of her cancer was never definitively identified, and Amy was told she would require rigorous scans every 3 months for the rest of her life to monitor for any recurrence. In February 2025, Amy faced another terrifying health crisis when she was rushed to the emergency room with severe chest pain and breathing difficulties. She had to be airlifted to a larger hospital, where she was diagnosed with a severe case of pneumonia and placed under anesthesia in the intensive care unit. Her daughter, Snowbade, tragically updated fans that her mother's lungs were in terrible condition. Fortunately, after weeks in the hospital, doctors successfully removed her breathing tube, and she stabilized. As of early 2026, Amy remains cancer-free, But her health remains incredibly fragile, a constant source of anxiety for the remaining Brown children. We now move to Joshua Bam Bam Brown, the second-born son, who was often portrayed as the most level-headed, pragmatic, and private member of the wolf pack. Bam Bam was the quiet engine that kept the family's ambitious projects moving forward, but he ultimately found himself caught up in the same legal web as his father. When the state of Alaska brought the 60-count indictment against the Brown family for the permanent fund dividend fraud, Bam Bam was named alongside his father. Like Billy, Bam Bam chose to accept a plea deal to protect the rest of his family, pleading guilty to one misdemeanor count of second-degree unsworn falsification. According to his attorney, Bam Bam felt tremendous, crushing guilt over the crimes. His devotion to his father was so profound that he actually offered to serve Billy's jail time, fearing that incarceration would kill his ailing patriarch. The judge sentenced Bam Bam to 180 days in jail, suspending 150 of them, resulting in Bam Bam serving 30 days behind bars in 2016. He was ordered to pay back over $1,000 in ill-gotten dividends and was hit with a $2,000 fine. Bam Bam's departure from the show was not solely due to legal matters. It was also deeply tied to a romantic relationship that caused a massive rift within the family. He began dating Allison Kagan, a woman who had worked behind the scenes on the show as a producer. The Brown family, particularly Billy, reportedly gave Allison an incredibly cold reception, viewing her as an outsider who did not understand their way of life. The tension became so unbearable that it contributed heavily to Bam Bam's decision to walk away from the family and the show entirely. Since leaving television, Bam Bam has lived a fiercely private life away from the cameras with Allison. He did make headlines in May 2020 when he was involved in a terrifying, fatal motor vehicle accident on a Washington state freeway. A black Camaro crossed the center line and collided head-on with Bam Bam's GMC truck. State troopers confirmed that Bam Bam, who was 37 at the time, was entirely without fault. He swerved desperately to avoid the oncoming vehicle and ended up in a ditch. He survived the crash without life-threatening injuries, walking away from an incident that could have easily added him to the tragic list of deceased cast members. Solomon Isaiah Freedom Bear Brown, the third-born son, was marketed as the energetic, wild child king of extreme who was always willing to take on the most dangerous physical challenges the bush had to offer. However, Bear's real-life extreme behavior eventually spilled over into serious legal trouble and highly publicized domestic turmoil. On March 11, 2022, Bear was arrested near his home in Washington state and charged with fourth-degree domestic violence assault. The incident occurred during a heated confrontation with his girlfriend, Raven Adams, who was the mother of his child. According to the investigative police report, Bear had been banging on the door of Raven's camper trailer throughout the night before the situation escalated. When the confrontation moved inside, Bear allegedly attempted to forcibly take a phone from Raven, put her on the ground, and pushed her down onto a bed, holding her by the hip. Raven suffered scratches on her hand during the struggle. When deputies arrived, they found no evidence of strangulation, and neither alcohol nor drugs were deemed to be factors in the incident. Bear spent the weekend in the Okanagan County Jail before being released without bond, eventually entering a plea deal in April 2022 to resolve the charges. Bear's relationship with Raven Adams has been a roller coaster of extreme highs and toxic lows since they met at Noah's wedding in 2018. They got engaged in August 2019, only to split 2 weeks later. In a stunning